I never imagined that one decision could completely change everything between us, but here I am, sitting alone and replaying the moments over and over in my head. My name is Clara, I'm 28, and I've always thought of myself as someone who knew exactly what I wanted. I thought I understood relationships, I thought I understood people, but apparently I didn't. Because when it came to him, when it came to Daniel, I realized how little I actually knew. We had been seeing each other for about a year. It wasn't long, but it was long enough for me to feel that something was building, something real, or so I thought. Daniel was different from anyone I had ever dated. Calm, steady, never pushy, always attentive. The kind of man who makes you feel safe without having to say it. I had always joked to my friends that he was too good for me, that he had this aura of perfection that made me feel like I had to prove myself constantly. And maybe, deep down, that's exactly why I made the mistake I did. It started on a Thursday evening. We had plans to grab dinner, something casual, nothing fancy, just the two of us catching up after a long week. I remember the drive there, the light drizzle hitting the windshield, the way he hummed quietly to himself as he drove. Everything about him was calm, controlled. I, on the other hand, was restless. My mind kept racing, thinking about everything I'd ever done wrong in relationships, wondering if I was even capable of making someone stay, wondering if Daniel really cared as much as he said he did. By the time we got to the little bistro we liked, I was already making decisions I didn't even consciously realize. I wanted to test him to see if he would fight for me. Not in a petty way, not like a game, but as some sort of twisted reassurance. I wanted to know if he truly valued me or if he'd just let me walk away whenever I decided to push him. I know now how ridiculous that sounds, and maybe it's why I still cringe thinking about it. We were seated at a corner table, the kind that gave a sense of privacy without being completely isolated. He was talking about his week, about work, about a project he had just finished, and I listened, half smiling, half distracted. I was plotting, analyzing, waiting for the perfect moment to test him. And then it came, that stupid thought, that idea that would ruin everything. What if I just tell him no? What if I reject him just to see if he'd fight for me? I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was arrogance. I told him that I didn't think we should see each other for a while. That I needed space. That I wasn't sure where my feelings were. I framed it casually, almost as if I were making a joke, but underneath, my heart was racing. I wanted to see his reaction, to see if he'd argue, to see if he'd beg, to see if he truly wanted me. Daniel paused. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me, his expression calm, unreadable, like he was processing the words carefully. And then he did something I never expected. He smiled faintly, a small, almost imperceptible curve of his lips, and said, "Okay." I blinked, unsure if I heard him correctly. "Okay?" I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. "Yeah," he said again, calm as ever. "If that's what you feel you need, I respect it." I remember feeling this sharp pang of panic, the kind that makes your stomach flip and your chest tighten. That's not how it's supposed to go in the movies. That's not how it's supposed to go in any story I had ever heard. I wanted drama. I wanted passion. I wanted him to fight. I wanted him to chase me. But he didn't. He just moved on in that quiet, composed way that left me completely unprepared. The rest of the evening was surreal. He didn't argue. He didn't try to convince me. He didn't even ask if I was joking. He simply accepted it, finished his drink, and we left the restaurant in silence. I felt this gnawing sense of loss even as I tried to convince myself that it was a test, that it was my own doing, that it wasn't real. But it was real. So real that by the time we got back to his car, I couldn't stop fidgeting, trying to fill the space with words that didn't matter anymore. I asked him nervously if he was upset, if he was angry, if he didn't care. He shook his head, still calm, and said, "I care, but I also respect your feelings. You asked for space and I'm giving it to you." I wanted to scream, to beg, to demand, to cry, to do something. Anything. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the realization that he wasn't going to react the way I expected, the way I needed him to. That evening, I watched him walk away quietly, and something inside me shifted. For the first time, I saw him not as the man who would always wait, who would always forgive, who would always chase, but as someone with boundaries, someone with self-respect, someone who valued himself enough not to be manipulated. The days that followed were worse. I called, I texted, I tried to explain, to justify, to make excuses for my behavior, but he didn't respond. And the more I reached out, the more I realized that he had already moved on emotionally. Not with another person, not with vengeance, but with his own life, his own peace, his own dignity intact. And I was left staring at my phone, at my reflection, at my choices, wondering how I could have been so blind, so foolish, so arrogant. I tried talking to my friends about it. They said, "Maybe it's good. Maybe he's teaching you a lesson. But it wasn't just a lesson. It was a wake-up call. A harsh, unrelenting reminder that actions have consequences. That respect isn't optional. That love isn't enough when it's paired with manipulation. And now, weeks later, I can still feel the emptiness of his absence, the quiet that has settled in my apartment, the weight of knowing that I tested someone and they proved their worth and I failed mine. I see him in my memories, in the little gestures I took for granted, in the calm, steady presence I assumed would always be there. And I realized that the man I wanted to fight for me didn't need to. He moved on, and in doing so he showed me what real strength looks like.